welcome back to Christy Grey Scarlet Pen. I am coming to you a few days after Valentine's Day because I gave myself a very specific challenge with only a short amount of time to finish it. If you've been reading my blog, ChristyGreyScarletPen.com, you will have seen that I gave myself a Valentine's Day reading challenge with only about, I think, 7 days before Valentine's Day to complete it. And I think that I did pretty well, if you ask me. So if you didn't know what it was, I basically gave myself 7 to 10 days to read romance books right in the lead up to Valentine's Day. And the book that kicked off this idea was The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I knew that it was about a Groundhog's Day on Valentine's Day and thought it sounded fun, like a really fun story. And I have been traveling for work every day, so it seemed like it was the perfect time to have that audiobook and read it. And so I thought that why not? Why wouldn't I just add a few extras on there of the romance books that I have in my collection? So I actually managed to get through a lot more than I thought I would. I am very proud of myself, and I think I relatively succeeded. I didn't get through every single book, but I did get through a lot. So I'm going to briefly go over all of these books that I ended up reading and my basic thoughts. If you want a little bit more detail, you can head to ChristyGreyScarletPen.com and find my blog post where I will go into a little bit more detail, including how many stars I rated each book. So the first one that I did was The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, which I listened to on audiobook. I really liked this story, like, a lot. I really enjoyed it. I think that the Groundhog Day is like really being done a lot. That idea of repeating the same day over and over has been done a lot, but I actually really enjoyed it in this book. I think sometimes that can come off and be annoying and be frustrating. I liked it. I think Lynn Painter did a fantastic job. I liked the characters. I liked the journey that our main character and our other characters went through, even though our main character really is the only person who knows that the day is repeating. But I actually just really enjoyed it. It was a fun, it was light, it was romantic, it was exactly what you want. It was a rom-com extravaganza, and I really enjoyed it. So that was my first book. I don't actually remember the order that I read these in, but I'm just going to talk about them, you know, in the order that I want to. I actually ended up going with a different audiobook after that, and it was called A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. This was not on my list of books that I had planned to read, but I owned this book in physical form, and I thought, well, why not listen to the audiobook so that I know if I even want to keep this book in my bookcase. And by the way, that's something I've been doing recently while I've been having this longer journey every day to get to work, and it has been working very well. Chef's kiss, it's great. And so I ended up picking up a Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting, and genuinely shocked me that I really quite enjoyed it. I am not really a huge historical fiction or period piece reader. Oh my gosh. A period piece reader. I'm not huge into sort of 1800s stories and things like that, you know, but this one took me by surprise. I actually really liked it. I enjoyed the characters. It was fun. I liked it. It shocked me too, but it wasn't on my list. I ended up reading it anyway. Alright, so the next book I actually physically read was another Lynn Painter book. I already had listened to The Do-Over, and I thought, why the heck not? Keep the ball rolling. I liked The Do-Over, so I'm probably going to like, which I actually knew ages ago when I actually bought this book, Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I am so late to the bandwagon for this book, but I am okay with it because why not, and who cares. But I loved this book so much. I read this in an afternoon. I read this in an afternoon. I don't often have time. I happen to have sat down on a Saturday to read this book. I think I'd read one chapter before then, but I sat down and basically read this in one day. I loved it. It was a YA romance with someone who loves movies and references rom-coms and stuff all the time. Enemies to lovers trope, like I just, I loved it. It was so fun and so good. I actually think I really like Lynn Painter in general. I think that's why I'm really digging her stuff. Alright, so the next one that I did was another audiobook. Again, like I said, I did this over a couple of days, and I listen to audiobooks on double speed. So, you know, I got through a few, but this book took me by surprise. Way more surprise than A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. This I did not expect to like, and it is impossible. So this is by Sarah Lotz. Sometimes it is called The Impossible Us, other times it is just called Impossible, but either way it's the same book. I am... In order to talk about this, I have to do a spoiler-free and a spoiler version. So here is the spoiler-free opinion on this book. This is like a, not a normal love story. Nick's a failed writer and B is a serial dater and whatever, and their paths cross when they accidentally get an email mixed up, and it's supposed to be this scathing email for someone else, and accidentally she gets it, and then they sort of get this exchange back and forth, and it's not a normal romance. It took me by surprise that I actually really liked it. Not a lot of romance books really just surprise me. This did. And in order to actually explain what the heck I'm talking about and why it was good and why I liked it, I'm gonna now have to go into a spoiler version. If you want to skip ahead to my last book, which is Meet Me in the Margins, so that's really a good one. But if you want to skip ahead, follow the time stamp that I am about to put on the screen somewhere here, because I have to explain why this book is just the way it is. So here we go. Spoilers in 3, 2, 1. This book was just so insane. I actually can't... So essentially Nick and B are from different dimensions and in different worlds, and somehow their emails manage to reach each other, and they start to realize that actually they can't meet in person because they're in completely different dimensions. Like maybe a third of the way through the book, and 2/3 of this book is them figuring out A, that they're in different like multiverse dimensions, and B, like, does that mean they can't be together, or does it mean they can? Like, how is that going to work? And I just actually loved it. Like, not even close to what I was expecting to happen. Well, it just went so far off into the distance. And honestly, they don't market it that way because they want everyone who reads it to be surprised. And I get that, but also like, dang, Warner Girl, watch out before you like throw interdimensional romances into the mix. So not what I expected, but I actually really liked it. The ending, I am half minds about. I won't spoil the ending, but like I am in half minds about how this book ended. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if it was satisfactory, but I've decided to just let that sit exactly where it is and just be itself. But this took me hugely by surprise, and I liked it. Okay, last book I actually made it through, Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson. I feel like a lot of people was reading this and talking about it for a while, and then it just sort of stopped, but I loved this book. Like, this is writer and editor meet but don't meet. Like, she doesn't know who the heck is editing her books and putting notes in the margins, but in order to meet this tight deadline to actually get this book potentially signed to an agent, she, lets this mysterious guy who is editing her books, she works in like a publishing house, and you know what, I loved it. I'm a writer, I'm a reader, so for me, stories about books and writers, I like them. It was funny, it was interesting. I pretty much pegged everything from the start, but doesn't matter. Like, I enjoyed the ride anyway. Like, just because I figured it out, it didn't wreck this book for me. It was still really fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. So props, Melissa Ferguson. I actually had her other books on my list to buy. Yeah, I am there. I like Melissa Ferguson. I think she's really good, and yeah. That is a pretty solid effort, I will say. The only 2 books that I didn't get to, and I feel like I ended up with 2 extras anyway, but I did those audiobooks. But these are the 2 books that I actually didn't get around to reading in time for Valentine's Day. So I have All's Fair in Love and Cupcakes by Betsy St. Amant. Baker ends up going on a reality TV show about baking, and potentially means she'll move away, but her best friend, who is sort of in love with her, I suppose, realizes that he's going to potentially lose his best friend and the person that he loves if she wins. And so it's kind of like this, I gave this to you, but also maybe it's not a great idea. I didn't end up making it to read this. I actually despise the books that are this size. Like, this mass market paperback size I hate, which is why I haven't really reached for it very much. But I did put it on the list. I didn't quite make it. And the other one, which was Miss Invisible by Laura Jensen Walker. I did start this book. I've done 2 chapters. I'm up to chapter 3. I did start it. It's hard sometimes when I just don't have a lot of time to physically sit and read, but I do have time to listen to audiobooks. And it's just not available at my library. I've been going through the library audiobooks. Why buy when I can rent for free? And so like library audiobooks are where it's at. I'm just saying. I really wanted to read this one. I still do. I am 2 chapters in. It is definitely something I am reading through. It is basically a bigger gal who is also a baker, which is hilarious. The 2 baking books were the ones I didn't get to, but and she is trying to figure out love, but while also being bigger, plus size, and trying to figure all that out. She is, from what I've read in the first few chapters, there is like trigger warnings for things like eating disorders and fat shaming and stuff like that. So this is interesting though, because she really does not, like, there's one thing to say where people in the, you know, body positive movement are like, love yourself the way you are, but then other people are like, they don't love themselves when they're big. And so there's like, yeah, there's those 2 mindsets. I feel like there's a middle ground, which is sort of where I sit, where I'm like, I don't hold my main value in how I look, so it doesn't matter to me, but also I want to be healthy. That's where I sit, somewhere in the middle. But there is those 2 extremes of you should just love yourself no matter how big you are, and then also I don't like myself no matter how big I am. Small, big, in between, doesn't matter. I'm still not gonna like the way I look. And that is sort of where this book is at the moment in the first few chapters. She just does not, her name is Frankie, she just does not love herself and see her own worth as a human because she can't see past her own weight. So it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a tough read, I really do. So it's gonna be interesting to go through this one. I wasn't quite expecting that, to be honest. I was expecting I love myself no matter what you say, and I'm bigger kind of a romance. It's not shaping up to be like that for now. So we'll see how we go. Wow, that was all of the books that I got through. That was just such skim reviews. Again, like I said, if you want the actual sort of more in-depth reviews, you can follow me on Goodreads, or I'm also on Storygraph, I think, as well. But you can also go to the ChristyGraceScarletPen.com website / blog, I think, is where you can see my posts, and I hopefully will tag this video in that post. Fingers crossed. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Enjoy your own reading, and I'll see you guys in the adventures.